at 8:30. Make sure that folks can transition into their next meeting. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to see you all here again this morning, and welcome to the third UAIM Change Management team meeting. I sent out an agenda a little bit late yesterday. Apologies for that. We just mostly want to say hello, get an update from Scott and Cello on some project coordination that they've been doing, and then we'll dive into 2 case studies, DC Water and then Portland. I'll kind of gauge the interest in the DC Water story, and if there's more discussion and we really want to dive into it, we can carry over or share the Portland story in other ways. So I'll kind of gauge how much time we have and how people are, the interest in DC. So let's do a roundtable greeting, and I'll call folks. Well, actually, the best way to do it, I think, is, I think I'll call. It's easier to just make sure we get through everyone. So I'm Dawn Uchiyama. I'm at BES in Portland, Oregon, and I'm joined today by another BES member who I'm super happy to be here with, and I'll turn it over to her, Alice.
Hi, Alice Brawley-Chesworth, Portland BES.
Great. Zanetta?
Good morning. I'm Zonetta English. I'm the work at MSD in Louisville, and I'm the Strategic Initiatives and Project Delivery Director.
Excellent. Welcome. Patricia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Taylor-Lytle. I am the Director of Talent Management, and Makeda is my colleague. So Makeda, would you like to go?
Yes, Makeda Weaver, Program Manager for Talent Management at DC Water.
Great. Jessica?
Hi, Jessica Dazar, Asset Management Program Director at Loudon Water in Virginia.
Great. Anyone else from Virginia on the call? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, Ryan.
Hello, everybody. Ryan Lucicero, Business Practice Leader at Clean Water Services, Strategy, Performance, and Innovation. And I'm calling from Florida today.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Parjat?
Hello, everyone. I am Parajat. I'm from Kansas City Water Department. I am Organizational Development Practitioner there.
Excellent. Welcome. Let's see, Chris
Wu from Metro Vancouver, Canada. From Asset Management and Capital Planning Department.
Great. Welcome. Mia?
I am Mia Pudmana from KC Water.
Excellent. And I think I got everyone. Scott and Cello, I think you're the 2 that haven't gone yet. You want to say hello? And
Mert? Yeah, Mert.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. This is Mert Maftougil. I'm with the Asset Management branch of Portland Water Bureau. On the water side.
Yeah, Dan Ott.
Oh, yeah, I'm Dan Ott. I'm also with KC Water, a co-worker with Parajat and Mia, and I'm the project management section head in our engineering department.
We'll save the best for last, Scott. So I'm Chell. I'm in charge of disturbances and special effects on this project, I think.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's so clever. Scott Haskins. I'm in Seattle, where it's dawning also, and I'm co-principal investigator for the project.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And sorry, Mert and whoever, I'm sorry that I didn't catch everyone. Yeah, thank you for catching that, Cello. So I'll turn it over to Scott and Cello for an update. I know that you've been doing some coordination work between the teams and have also been thinking about next steps and how to move this work forward. I'll turn it over to you for a few minutes and so you can give us an update.
Go ahead, Cello. We've had a lot of back and forth and team calls.
Yes, and welcome Doug Stewart from, I'm not sure where Doug is right now, but he's on the call.
Great. Welcome, Doug.
Deer Park, Washington.
Okay, so what we've been doing is trying to line up what we're doing on these 3 initiatives to establish what is common between them in terms of methodology and approach, and how it expands and builds on the stuff that we've been doing so far. So we're working on a document which will start with we're working on a document for WEF, but we're also extracting that into a sort of a PowerPoint presentation that we plan to share as soon as possible. We're also trying to map out tangible, practical steps for these 3 initiatives, each of which is addressing a potentially huge topic, such as change management, organizational culture, and workforce. They're each really kind of monsters on their own. So we will come out with something shortly. Also, we'll try to focus our efforts so that we can get some practical and tangible results early. What I will ask a little bit later is for some volunteers, and I'm for folks who would like to have a special interest and really want to take a deep dive into these things, to just ping me, send me an email. I've got some homework for you, and would love to have you help us out. So the difference between involvement and committed: if you had ham and egg for breakfast, chicken was involved and the pig was committed. So if you're committed, just send me an email, and that's it.
You're on mute, Don.
Sorry about that. Scott, do you have anything to add?
No, it's, yeah, Cello said it all.
Okay, great. Well, it does address a question that I've had. I haven't had a chance to connect with you both recently, but I was kind of wondering what the workforce is behind these discussions and who would actually be doing the writing and organizing the ideas. So it sounds like you're starting to build a team of people who can actually do more than participate in the discussion.
That is correct. And what we've done on the workforce is we've selected one topic of focus, which is engagement, employee engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to focus on that. We are going to look first at the Gallup methodology, the one from their worldwide survey. I've posted documents for that in the workforce space. Anybody who's interested, just ping me. I'll give you a link so you don't have to look around. So we would like to establish a core team between all 3. People who would like to sort of really roll up their sleeves and get into the details. Some folks on each team are more interested in sort of learning and have a broader focus, but people who want to really dig deep into this, I'd like to get from all 3 groups so that we can coordinate and make sure that it's all coherent and that it all matches each other.
So Don, I would just add that where we're at right now is doing some sharing like today, and getting some familiarization with the topic area. We're involved in narrowing it down. As Cello said, in the workforce, it's been narrowed down to engagement, where there'll be some discussion around that. But then there's a model that we want to apply that has the different elements that we've spoken about for the project, which incorporates the research, has maturity, has assessment, has the a continual improvement cycle associated with it, and hopefully follow that same methodology for the 3 teams. So we're looking forward to getting there, and like Cello said, probably having a working meeting with probably the leads and other special interest people who want to dive into that and get involved in that methodology that we would be applying.
Excellent. Thank you. That really helps. Any questions for Cello or Scott at the moment?
Hi, this is Parajat. Not a question, but I have worked with Gallup in my previous organization for employee engagement. So if I could be of any help, I'll be happy to.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. a couple of us have worked with Gallup on different research projects, and if you were involved in a research project on engagement, then that's really cool.
Sure.
You just got yourself into a lot of trouble, Parajot, but that's okay.
Okay.
And looks like
Hey,
Mert.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something to Cello real quick. And Cello, if possible, I was wondering is it possible to summarize this Gallup survey on the Teams site? So I guess I know what I'm sort of like, if I should go and take a look at it in more detail. If
Yes,
it's not,
can.
if
Yeah,
it's possible.
it is a study that they do every few years in about I think 155 countries, and they separate. They identify three categories of employee engagement levels. One is engaged, people who are actually keen to improve and their energy is aligned with the organization. The other one is disengaged, people who basically come in and punch the clock and don't really get engaged. And the third category is actively disengaged, which is somebody, which are people that actually are negatively impacting the company, which means they're going against they're counterproductive. So it goes from productive to neutral to counterproductive. And worldwide, numbers change through the years, but I think that the engagement, the number of engagement is worldwide is 19%. In the US, it's now gotten to 30%. Vast majority of people are in the middle, and I think on the actively disengaged, it's about 24%. But it does indicate the level of engagement in general, and it's the most standard thing. The reason that I would tend to think it's not a bad place to start is because employee engagement is a complex indicator that includes many other things. There's a standard methodology. There's an incredible wealth of data from benchmarking. And I was also hoping that we could perhaps even, I don't recall a survey like that being done for all WEF members for our profession. So maybe we could scale it up, scale it down to just organizations who are participating here. And the idea of scalability is important because we want to, we want to have the Goldilocks, not too much homework, not.
And Dawn, here we're talking about kind of workforce and engagement, and we need to get into change management. But just to mention, for Mert, another benefit is that engagement has to do with employee engagement, but it's also how do you engage for the organization as a whole, and how do you engage with the community ultimately. So we have different levels of engagement from a governance or institutional standpoint. But all that said, we probably want Dawn to move us forward on change management.
Yep. Okay. Thank you both. I appreciate it. I think it's good for us to just have an idea of where we're heading with this. So thank you for that, taking that little bit of extra time. I really appreciate it. So I believe that I'm going to turn it over to Makita now. Is that true? Makita, are you going to lead the discussion for the DC Water?
If I can get off of mute, yes, I will.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem. And thank you guys for having me. So we're just going to do sort of a really high level overview of our change management at DC Water, where we are, the different tools that we analyzed, and sort of what we selected and why, and where we are now, and some lessons we also learned along the way. So we're going to be going over the history, some analysis and tool selection, what we're currently using, and again, lesson learned, like I just said. So and this presentation is actually modified, a modified presentation that we presented to senior leadership about the need for change management. So this data comes from ProSci. ProSci is really great in having a lot of data around change management and why it's important. Historically, we've been very focused on project management, but we would notice there would be some gaps when it came to actually implementing projects and things like that. So we said it looks like the missing piece there is the human return on investment. So are people adopting the change in terms of the projects that we're trying to roll out? Are people really using things and the new processes and procedures, and are they proficient in it? And these are things we want to increase. So the data shows that, you know, and you guys are preaching to the choir here, the more we invest in change management, the better results we're going to get. So we looked at some of the past tools that we had used in the past. So the GE Change Acceleration process, 3M, Accenture, ProSci, these are all tools we had used in the past. I think I mentioned in our past meeting that we were very siloed. So it's not that these tools were used organization-wide. It might have been engineering is using one tool and sewer operations is using another tool and finance is using another tool. So we took a look at all the different tools that we had looked at. We also surveyed staff that participated in past trainings on these tools and used their employee feedback to pick the best tools for DC Water. Now, some of the survey result themes that we got were people really wanted tools. It was two things. They wanted tools that sort of had clear guidelines as well as buy-in and participation. So we connected that to sort of looking at a tool that really focused on the human return on investment factors, which are sort of that, again, that speed of adoption, utilization and proficiency, and also had the tools that allowed us to sort of measure that change and drive it forward while focusing on that human piece. Another part of our landscape that's important to note is that as we were sort of going through this analysis and looking at what type of change management tool we wanted to use organization-wide, we were in the process of developing an enterprise performance management office. So we have an enterprise performance management office which handles a lot of the high-level project management across the authority. So our performance team and project management team work closely on the traditional project management side of the thing, of the projects that we implement. So we didn't need a change management tool that specifically spoke to the project management side. So looking at the tools that we had used in the past, we had narrowed it down to the GE Change Acceleration process and ProSci. And the change acceleration process is a combination of strategic and project planning along with change management, where ProSci really focuses on tools that address the human return on investment. So again, because we have our enterprise performance and project management office, we really wanted a tool that focused more on the human return on investment. So we went with ProSci. It's important to note, however, that we do have quite a number of employees who are trained in both models. We probably have about 15 to 17 employees who are trained in ProSci, and I would say about 15 who are trained in the GE Change Acceleration process. So we do still sort of use different elements for different projects. We're not wedded to one model, but we are leaning towards using ProSci in the future.
Makeda, is it okay to interrupt along the way if people have questions? You know, and I'm just going to start with a question is that you emphasize the human ROI factors, and those make complete sense. Was wondering if you also had other return on investment or success factors, like the fact that you have a documented process. You mentioned you know, project management, and so you have a, you know, kind of an approach that you're using to make changes, and you might have, for example, metrics or performance indicators that kind of measure how you're doing.
Yes, another reason that led us to choosing ProSci is ProSci, and it's on an upcoming slide, actually incorporates an organizational change management maturity model where they have different metrics for where you should be in your organization in terms of change management and how it should interact with project management. So our metrics, our performance and project management office actually has metrics geared to, you know, how well changes are being implemented and adopted. And Pat, I don't know if you want to jump in. I know you've been working with them on the metrics to. Pat, on mute.
Yes, no, I'm here. So we currently use the ProSci model for a project that we're working on, enterprise-wide project that we're working on. So I think, Makeda, you're going to talk about a little bit later. So there's the project management side, and then there's the change management side. And a lot of times you can have them working together. You can have them working into two separate areas. But with us, we actually have the change management piece working with the project management piece. So specifically when we're working on all of the ERP change management things, we're focused on change management, and we're by ourselves and we're in a group, but at the same time we're working with the project management side. And so the measures that we take are, are people using the system, the new system? Because what usually happens during doing projects, we're doing the projects and the project is a success, but then are they actually using the project the way that it's supposed to be used? And most of the time that's a no. And if the project is done, everyone's like, oh, yay, we made it, we finished, let's celebrate. But the reality is that the people aren't using it to its full capacity as they should. So the change management piece is helping us to ensure that that's done with the different trainings, also with the different resources that individuals have after the project is complete, and really taking a look at how people are feeling about it. And so we were able to mitigate some of those issues early on. And we use ProSci. We use GE CAPS for other projects, but specifically for this particular initiative, we used ProSci. And Makeda is going to go through a little bit more how that works and how we use it.
And they're both good tools, but
yes,
like I said, based on our organization, ProSci sort of fit our needs a little bit better. So this is an overview of the GE Change Acceleration Process Model. You can see it's creating a shared need, shaping a vision, mobilizing commitment, making change last, monitoring progress. Where ProSci is sort of their cornerstone is this ADKAR model. So awareness of the need for change, desire to support the change, knowledge of how to change, ability to demonstrate skills and behaviors, and reinforcement to make the change stick. And as a comparison, if we look at both of these, our enterprise performance and project management office really takes care of this shared need and shaping a vision for us. So where they get to sort of mobilizing commitment almost halfway through the process, the ProSci ADKAR process is sort of focused on that exclusively all the way through, which is a better fit for our needs for the projects we're currently working on. And again, that's due to our organizational structure. But we really encourage you guys, if you guys are looking for a model that works for your organization, to look at different models, look at your organizational landscape, not only with internal, and I think you made a great point about engagement, Scott, but we have a lot of contractors and vendors too who we need to engage who require just as much care and attention as our employees. So we have to make sure that they also are aware of any changes that we're making and know how to use our new systems and things like that.
Makeda, have you converted, you basically looked at the research, you analyzed the different systems, and it sounds like you're moving in the direction of one standard, kind of model and system for your organization. Are there outliers or cases where you would use something different, or are you really moving in that one direction?
Yeah, I think while we are moving in the direction of having a standard, we are remaining flexible. We know that different projects require different things. So we want a general toolbox that people can sort of access these tools, but we are also open to using different tools if necessary, if they fit our needs. So ProSci has a great library of tools, but GE CAP also has some tools that we still might use down the line. So while we are leaning strongly towards using the ProSci model, we are open to sort of using other tools as we go along, and also sort of based on the feedback that we get from our users, if they might need something different. That is definitely one of our lessons learned, is that we need to remain flexible and get feedback from folks. Mm-hmm. We also want to remain flexible because one of our other lessons learned is that we can our folks can sometimes become very, very married to a model. And so we want to encourage them also to be flexible and find things that work for them. Does that make sense to you guys? Dawn, you're on mute.
I just need to leave that off mute. My garbage truck's in the back. Thank you. That does make sense. And Dan Ott has his hand raised.
Okay, Dan, yep.
Yeah, just curious, being on the project management side of things, people use the term project to mean a lot of different things. So I want to make sure I kind of understand how these tools are being used for change management within a project. Are you using these tools for what I'll call like hard projects, like capital improvement projects, like building a treatment plant? Or are you also using it for what I would call a soft project, like implementing a leadership development plan within the organization? Is it one or the other or both, or?
It's both. We're actually using this model. We are in the process of implementing a new ERP system. We are in the phase where we're currently knee deep with all our financial systems and IT folks. So we are using it. And like Pat said, we have our project managers who live in IT, but we are working closely with them to engage the end users and make sure that folks are adequately trained and that there's training materials so that people can, use the system, that sort of thing. But we are also using this. I actually was talking to a colleague this morning who is working on employee engagement, and she's had to make a lot of changes to our employee recognition program due to COVID, so we can't have in-person events. And so she's sending out communications. I was like, oh, you're doing the AdCard. You're creating awareness by doing the pre-communication and building desire so that people know what's going on. So we both do use it both for hard projects and more behavioral cultural changes. And Pat, I don't know if you want to.
No, I agree, Makeda. You're spot on.
Yeah. Yes.
I guess as a follow-up, do you find, I guess, those that are adopting these tools, is there one area where folks are more conducive to people adopting it versus others within the organization?
I will say for the behavioral and cultural change, people are already primed to be in that behavioral and cultural change mindset, where sometimes some of the more concrete capital improvement IT projects, folks are just focused on, can we get this done, under time, under budget, and if we have bodies on the road, that's fine. People, that's fine, which is not what we want, because then you get the malicious compliance, you get folks who don't use the system, and it take a lot longer. So one of the things we also know with change management is, change might still happen, but if people are not adequately trained, not adequately brought in, they might undermine, right? They might undermine, stall. So technically the change will have happened, but it will not have happened the most efficiently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
All right. And so this is also what I was talking about, where the change maturity model, I know, Scott, you had asked about the different levels and how we measure. ProSci has tools to measure all these things through surveys and how to build these things into metrics. So you can see sort of where you are with the change management model. Is change management sort of woven throughout the organization, or is it sort of just based on isolated projects, or just, Scott knows change management is a good thing, so Scott's doing change management. Scott's always doing something over there.
He's got his hand raised, by the way.
Yep, and I see he has his hand raised, so yes, Scott.
I was just going to ask Makeda, I think that Dan, who's doing fantastic work as leading another improvement initiative on CIP, often you're implementing a project from a project management standpoint, but what you're also dealing with is doing business differently as a result of that particular project. And so, I think that's you briefly touched on it, but it has that, maybe that's what you meant by the marriage of change management and project management, because you're dealing with a change in the business processes too, in how to do business, right?
Exactly. And I'm a little bit triggered right now with the project we're working on. And this is where flexibility comes into play, because people are so focused on getting this new system up. And the folks who sort of own the process are saying, well, this new system totally changes our process. And it's a financial process. It impacts hundreds of people across the organization. So now we need you to do some more training, or we need you to help us build an as-is process. We need to now update our process really quickly because we didn't realize the system forced us to change our process. So this goes back to buying in and making sure people are aware of the change and you're getting feedback. Another cornerstone of ProSci is this triangle here, the change, project, and leadership triangle. So we've talked a little bit about how your change management team would work with your project management team to make sure things meet objectives and finish on time and budget and ROI is realized. But the most important component that ProSci really drives home is that your leadership and sponsorship needs to be there, needs to be bought in, needs to be a champion of the project. And I've even had folks say, you know, I'll go out to the mechanic shop or something and they're saying, oh, you know, Makeda, you're telling us this is changing coming down the line. That's okay. But if Bijou comes, it's a whole different conversation, right? So that's one of our executives. So when people hear things from their executives, from their directors, they take it a lot more seriously. They're a lot more likely to pay attention to it, to get bought in. So focusing on that leadership sponsorship really makes it real and culturally really drives the change, lets people know that they have to change, because change fatigue also happens, right? We have a lot of folks who've been there for, you know, decades. And so they're like, we've seen a lot of change. So you have to find a way to make it relevant for people, and leadership sponsorship is a great way to do that. And that's sometimes the most challenging piece, right? Because
it is, and allowing those leaders to understand that whenever they're talking to anyone, especially around the change pieces, that they're focusing on the what's in it for me, meaning what's in it for that person, so that they can get that buy-in. So a lot of times we have to work with leadership to give them the right verbiage, or to help them in preparing what to say to people to keep them engaged and wanting to be a part of the change, and not feeling like the change is being done to them, but that they're a part of the change.
Yes. And Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you can describe quickly where you are on this continuum and give some idea of time and maybe what activated, like, you know, when did you realize you were at level 1 or 2, and then where are you now and how much time did that take?
Yeah. And I will say, it's funny, I think Pat and I started on the same day about 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
So this was already in motion when we started. I think a big catalyst of this too was we got a new general manager also around that time, general manager CEO. And I know he is very focused on driving some of these things. So I would say that we were at level 2 for a long time with different shops, organizations. Engineering was already doing this. A lot of this. Our HR department was doing a lot of this, but using different models. It wasn't standards. Right now, where we are, I would say that we are in between level 3 and 4 in terms of, again, identifying that we do want our organizational standard to be the ProSci model, and figuring out how do we socialize that and drive that culturally. I will also let you know this presentation you're looking at is an example of how we are using the change management model to drive sort of even the concept of change management. This was embedded. I think, Dan, you had a question about if we use this in our leadership development programs. We did a module on this in our year-long leadership development programs for managers who are looking at becoming directors. And we assigned a group who went through that year-long project. They had to do sort of a cultural transformation around change management. How are we going to socialize change management? So I'm using a lot of their presentation that they then presented to executives. So we found that as we use them, as we sort of embed it in the organization, those folks then become our ambassadors. We also have tuition benefits for career development. So tuition, certifications, folks can use a certain dollar amount. So a lot of folks are voluntarily using that dollar amount to invest in change management as well. So we are trying to embed change management at all levels, and also keep it, train people to train more people and get ambassadors. So I would say we're between level 3 and 4. And Pat, I don't know if you would have anything to add there.
No, I agree. And so because this is sort of a 2-phase process, especially with the ERP, we're going to actually have to go back to one when we start the next sections of which are going to involve the entire authority. So we would have to go back to make sure that everyone is aware of the what's happening. So that way, when we start to move up this continuum, we are making sure that everyone has to be aware of what's going on, so that way they won't be so resistant when the change happens.
That's very helpful. Thank you both. I really appreciate that.
Yep, and everybody at all levels. I had a great call with a foreman who's actually gone back to school to get his bachelor's, and he's studying sort of organizational leadership. And he's like, that change management training really sparked something, and I want to, because he's like, I have a lot of the old timers, and they don't want to do anything new. And so that's the things we love to hear. So. And we're also going to look at sort of another project we did, sort of, I think, right when we started or right before we started, we implemented a new work order system that involved moving from a paper process to something more electronic. Sort of now we're using Maximo. Folks can view and complete work orders through the computer, through their phones, that kind of thing. Some of the challenges we have, though, were fairly significant, including long-term employees resistant to change. And that resistance to change was for a lot of reasons, but a big one that we uncovered was employee computer literacy. Our folks are at all different levels of the literacy spectrum, and folks, if we have folks who they're like, I can just touch the pipe and know if it needs to be repaired or not, right? But they're not going to check their email, and they've been working here for 35 years, so they're like, well, nobody else can touch the pipe and know if it needs to be repaired. Why do I need to know how to use Microsoft Excel?
It's like the pipe whisperers.
Yeah, the pipe whisperers. Yep, Scott.
So, Makeda, Cello started out with, like on the Gallup, saying that you have those supporters and then you have those who actually work against it, and you're bringing up that topic a little bit. And you mentioned, oh, well, you send in top leadership, Bijou, whatever, to, say this is what we're going to do. I mean, how do you deal with it? Do you ignore the people who are the resistors of change and work with the others, or do you try to deal with all three groups, or how have you approached that?
Well, it's interesting because not only do we have sort of individuals who are resistant, but we have 5 unions, and they have very much an us versus them mentality. I know when I first started working, the union presidents, they were like, kept talking about their employees. I was like, you don't have any employees. They're DC Water employees. What are you talking about? But there's very much an us versus them mentality. So there's a lot of resistance. And so that we do address them at all levels. And that goes back to us sort of tying in and getting ambassadors at all levels. So if we can get our Bijous, our executive leaders, not only driving the message, but also their foremen and their teammates. Another thing we notice is that retention of high performers is an issue for everybody sort of across the HR field. But when you're using change management and making those folks change management ambassadors, allowing them to collaborate and network internally on projects and programs and initiatives really helps you get their buy-in and engagement, which helps you retain them as well. So we do have change ambassadors throughout at all levels as well. So I'll keep it quick. I was going to ask you guys, but we're having a good conversation. But so one of the ways we use that,
and I think we'll skip Portland. So please, I want to use this time, and I didn't have a presentation, so I think this is a good use of our time. So please, no need to rush.
Oh, okay. And Scott, is your hand still raised?
No.
No, okay. So I wanted to ask you guys, and are these challenges familiar to folks on the line as well? Employee resistance, computer literacy, us versus them, the unions.
You're singing our song.
Singing our song. So then our next question is, then how might you guys use this ADKAR model to drive a change if you had to? What are some of the first steps you would think about taking? And then I can share what we did. Scott, is your hand raised? No, okay.
Ryan Lochichero has his hand land.
Okay, Ryan.
Thanks, Cello. Thanks for the Italian pronunciation. Appreciate that. I just had a question about the retention. I was going back, so you kind of went forward, but I had a question about the retention of higher performers. And what does that look like from within this scenario here? I mean, you seem like Makeda, like a high performer? How are they going to keep you?
Well, it's interesting. So one of the things we noticed, so with this model, first thing is you sort of over communicate that this change is coming and letting people know they can be involved. You want to be a change ambassador. So you sort of let people self-select into supporting that change, and that self-selection is a great way to identify your high performers. And it also gives them visibility and opens them up to more opportunities across the organization. So then they're working on a project team. I'm just sighing now because I've been in training classes. I've worked here 20 years and I've never met this person because they work on the processing plant and I go out and fix people's meters. And these are the kind of conversations we have when we have these cross-functional teams. And it's like, well, now that I know this person after 20 years of not knowing them, they're going to be my go-to person. I'm going to call them when we have new projects or initiatives to see if they're interested in this. So it sort of becomes this organic way for people to network, build relationships, and build careers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, specifically our folks in the lab, nobody had ever met the lab folks ever. They just stayed down there. So, yeah.
Dan and Cello both have.
Dan and Cello.
Well, yeah, something I was reflecting on as I was thinking about this ADKAR model, it's really helpful is, I guess, working with engineers and being an engineer myself, I think maybe our tendency, and maybe this is across the board for everybody, it's not just engineers, but the tendency is maybe to jump straight to the car and skip the ad, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a recognition or just kind of a aha moment for me of the importance of taking the time to build the awareness and the desire so that then you can get on with the knowledge, ability, and reinforcement steps.
Yes, and a lot of the resistance comes in awareness and desire, right? Like, I don't want to do this. So you want to jump right to the car? You want me to know why do I need to know how to do it? I'm not going to do this. I've been doing my job for 30 years. Why are you trying to get me to do something different? You're trying to make,
right.
There's names, of course. You have Cello?
Yeah, I think that I told you I was in charge of special effects.
Yes.
Can you read this?
Yes, so awareness for the design of the need for change. Yep, ADKAR. You want me to read through the steps?
No, he's got his glasses on. ADKAR.
Oh, okay. And I'll email this to you guys as well too. So awareness of the need for change, desire to support the change, knowledge of how to change, ability to demonstrate skills and behaviors, and reinforcement to make skills stick. And ProSci has tools under each of these categories for you to measure and develop and move forward with these. So awareness of the need for change, that is when we engage our stakeholders at all levels. The desire is when we focus on sort of the communication, your focus groups, your touch and base with people to see where they are, uncovering resistance, right? So this is an important piece. Again, this employee computer literacy, they didn't come right out and tell us we don't want to use the new system because we're not good with computers, because there's a shame thing. We're human beings. There's a shame thing. Am I going to lose my job? So we had to have some of those one-on-ones with them, focus groups. We also had to sort of train our managers and make sure our frontline managers and foremen knew this was coming and why it was coming, so they could also serve as ambassadors as well. Knowledge is where we did our training. So training of the new system, letting people know not only the new system, but the timelines. What are the expectations of them going to be? Just so they could be reassured that, okay, if I don't learn this in a week, I'm not going to lose my job, right? And then they're much more able to focus on it. And then we have ability. So people's test environments, or within the training, ability to walk through the system and try things out, which is a big part of what we're doing with our ERP. We have weeks and weeks of training and testing and all that. And then reinforcement, which goes back to our supporting our managers, frontline managers, foremen, things like that, making sure that they know how to coach their folks and support their folks, and that they know that we're there as a change management team to support them if they need additional support. So I don't know, Scott, you have a hand?
Well, and Cello might have, you did a great job of summarizing that, but you missed his picture that he has. You look at his glasses.
Let's see if I can see.
Those were the special effects he was
I want
talking
ADKAR glasses. That's very well.
I told you I was in charge of special effects. But it's very helpful that you went through the steps. And when you get the ADCAR certification, you can get these glasses, you know, so.
I got a bag. They gave me a tote bag when I got certified.
Okay.
Makita, I was just going to ask you a question. One of the things we're finding in the organizational culture and workforce groups is that there's a strong relationship to change management as well as you know, those two other areas. Are you seeing impacts on organizational culture or workforce development, let's say, you know, and engagement as a result of the change management efforts that you're undertaking?
Well, it's very, very interesting, and Pat's off the line. I don't know how much I can say, but so it's a very interesting tug of war between these two pieces, the project management and change management. A lot of our folks who have been project managers for a very long time have been used to sort of handling all aspects of the project. And so then we're coming in saying, no, we're going to handle all the relationships and communication. So it's been a lot of negotiation there about clarification of roles. So I would say that a change is slowly happening there in terms of the organizational expectations of the different roles of the change management team and practitioners, and what that means for the project management team and practitioners. I also would like to think that there's been a change that where we're changing the expectations for our leaders at all levels, our executives as well as our directors, about the level of involvement expected of them in projects in their area. That's something we're trying to drive, that the expectation is that they are involved, even if they just want to be the face of it. We can draft all the communications for you. We'll just tell you where to show up. But that they're an integral part. So I think it's slowly happening. And I think you're bringing us to sort of some of our lessons learned. The first is over communicate. And second is engage at all levels. And I know we had that conversation last week about getting leadership buy-in and involvement can be challenging. Sometimes you need to go to the frontline manager or director level to get to your executive sometimes. So engaging folks at all levels ensures that you can get that leadership buy-in, but it also ensures that you sort of really get the pulse of what's happening, which is essential if there is any resistance. We found that a lot of the resistance can be emotional too. A lot of our folks, again, have been working at DC Water pretty much their whole entire lives. A lot of our frontline employees especially are, right out of high school. So their identity and everything is tied into sort of, I'm serving the community, I'm serving ratepayers, this is who I am. So you start to change those things, you get into emotions. You start to say, we need you to develop this new skill set. People can get very nervous about, are you trying to manage me out? What does this mean? So address emotions, be transparent. Also be open to feedback. It could be that during the planning process we missed something, or there was some information that we didn't have. So we need to take any feedback we get as data and figure out how to problem solve around that. Feedback and information in that data is good. Also build collaboration skills. I think, and going back to what you guys had said about so what we just said about the project management team and change management team, that has been sort of a master class in collaboration in negotiation. So who's going to take what does that mean? So sort of how can we be open to feedback? We have different aims. Ultimately, we have the same end goal, but we have different aims in terms of, you guys just need to get this done by this date, but we need clean communications and engagement. How can we make that happen? So negotiation. Yep. And Scott?
Well, somebody else had their hand up first, I think.
Okay.
Parijat.
Parijat.
Yeah. I had a quick question. So how big is the team that's supporting these change efforts at this quarter?
So we currently have about 15 to 17. I need to double check and make sure that nobody has left or gotten newly certified. And as far as the project, I'm just thinking that we're currently working on. So we have an ERP project, and we have a change management team, a core change management team. I would say there's about 7 of us, but we have ambassadors for different functional areas. So we have an engagement ambassador group, a training ambassador group. So we are really engaging these folks at all levels, which is really helping us get that feedback and get things done quicker and more smoothly. It's really helping us, really helping too, so that our frontline employees and end users who are impacted by change don't feel like change is just happening to them because their coworker, their supervisor, their colleague has been involved in the process. So I will say, while we have about those 15 to 17 people who have been certified in the model, you don't need to be certified in the model to use these processes and tools. And you can use these tools to sort of, you can develop more people to use these tools as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
So my question, Makeda, was you mentioned kind of metrics and how you monitor performance at the front end. Are there any kinds of metrics other than project management related metrics that you're using?
Yes, so a big one we are using, so we are tracking how many people attend training, we're tracking the communications that go out, how often and from who. We are also tracking questions and follow-up, not only the volume of questions and follow-up we're getting about the change in the system, but how often. And we are, you know, are the questions still coming a month later, or is sort of that email, we created a separate email box for questions and support, or do people seem to have gotten it after a week? So we're starting to collect that data. We also have sort of, you know, support numbers, email addresses, live meeting rooms where people can go to for support related to the change, where people have questions. So we're tracking, how long are people asking questions for?
Makeda, there was a question, and Dawn, you're needing to close this pretty quick, but Tanya had a couple really good questions in the chat that there's resistance from staff, that several are very shameful if they don't have the competencies or personal limitations, and then the role of unions where you're changing basically processes and procedures, wages, hours, working conditions, those things. How do you deal with that?
We engage unions and our labor relation team on the front end. And I hope that we can continue this conversation. I know as we talk about employee engagement, one of the things I found, Tanya, is that we have a lot of employees who are heavily engaged with their union. But from like a HR perspective, we might view them as disengaged employees, but they're very engaged with their union, if that makes sense. So looking at the overlap of engagement with union employees and what does that look like, that so that's something I think that is continues to be one of our biggest things that we need to pay attention to. But we always lead with labor relations before we do anything, because yes, they fight us tooth and nail. And I know we have a couple questions, Dawn. I'm not sure how you want to handle that because I know you'd have to close. I'm available if you guys have any questions. Feel free to email me or call me anytime.
Yeah, we can pick this up next time too. I want to make sure, Cello, will you be able to post this presentation? Well, you're going to post the meeting, but can you also post the presentation?
I can certainly post the video. If Makeda's okay with sharing the presentation, I will post that as well.
Yes. Great.
And I see that we have still hands up from other people. Ryan?
Sure. Thanks, John. Makeda, quick question. Where are you in the organization? Are you in public affairs? Are you in HR? Are you in
I am in people and talent. Yeah. So, and I'm in people and talent.
Is that like a business services or something, or?
It's our name has changed about 3 times. So yeah, it's human capital, HR. Yeah.
That's where HR now is people and talent. That's kind of how it. Okay. Great.
Yes.
Thank you. And you probably are closely working with the like your public affairs or government affairs folks.
Yes.
Right?
So we do keep our government affairs, public affairs folks on all these on all these teams. They're part of our ambassadors, as well as folks who work with our vendors and contractors. So we work closely with the procurement and contracting team because they're the folks who handle engagement for a lot of our stakeholders as well.
It's like workforce engagement kind of piece of HR, traditionally.
Yep.
HR. Yeah, okay.
I just want to say, you know, we expected a spark and you started a forest fire here. so which is very much appreciated. Everybody enjoyed, I can see from the chat, including me. So this was, and I appreciate Dawn organizing things like this. When we hear, this is exactly what we want, is to start hearing voices. And this was extremely useful. If you can send me the slides, I can, if that's okay, I'll post them for everybody to share.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Makeda, for a really great presentation. I presume this was your last slide, right?
Yes, this was the last slide.
Okay.
And again, feel free to email me with any questions or call me.
Excellent. Really great. Well, thank you for your time and attention, everyone. I'll follow up with Cello and Scott on our next steps, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.